Welcome. Before we start, did you know that if you like, comment and subscribe here on our channel, YouTube will understand your taste better and will start to show you more videos with this type of content more frequently, so what are you waiting for? Subscribe here on the channel. It was a quiet evening when I said it. Too quiet, I suppose. The kind of stillness that fills the spaces between two people who've lost the rhythm of their conversations. Mark and I had been sitting at the kitchen table, the only sound in the room the faint hum of the refrigerator. The air between us felt thick with unspoken words. For days, I'd been carrying the weight of a truth I was too afraid to voice. But that evening, something shifted inside me, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. "You don't turn me on anymore," I said, my voice cold and cutting. It wasn't a planned statement. It wasn't something I'd thought about before. It just spilled out, the words escaping like a leak I couldn't plug. I immediately regretted it, of course. It wasn't the kind of thing you say to your husband. Not when you're trying to fix things, not when you're hoping for some kind of spark to reignite the ashes of your relationship. Mark didn't respond right away. He didn't shout or throw something in my face, as I half expected. Instead, he went eerily silent, his dark eyes locking with mine in a way that made the room feel suddenly too small. His lips parted as if he might say something, but then he closed them again. A quiet, almost unsettling calm settled over him, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I had crossed some invisible line. I expected anger. I expected to see some flash of hurt in his eyes, to watch him stand up and walk away in frustration, like he always did when we fought. But he didn't do that. He just stared at me. His expression didn't change. The weight of the silence pressed down on my chest, and I felt the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. "Is that how you really feel?" he asked, his voice soft, almost too soft. I swallowed, my heart thudding in my chest. It felt like I'd said something wrong, something unforgivable, and now the air between us was thick with tension. But his calm demeanor made my insides churn with discomfort. I half expected him to get up, to storm out of the room. But Mark just sat there, unmoving, his face unreadable. I wanted to take the words back, to reach across the table and apologize for speaking so harshly. But I didn't. There was a strange satisfaction in finally saying what had been eating at me for so long. I was frustrated with the monotony of our lives, with the silence that had become our relationship, with the way we had stopped seeing each other for who we really were. I wanted to be free of that weight, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. "I don't think you understand," he said, his voice still calm, still collected, but there was something new in it now. Something colder. "You've said a lot of things, Emily. But you've never really said that." I wanted to ask him what he meant, to dig deeper into his words, but the uncertainty in his tone made me hesitate. There was something off about him, something different. I could feel it in the way he was looking at me, like I wasn't the woman he had married anymore. Like I had just become another problem to solve. "I don't think you get it either," I whispered, my voice wavering for the first time since I had spoken. "We've lost everything, Mark. We're just going through the motions now." For a moment, Mark just stared at me, his face still unreadable. Then, without a word, he stood up and walked out of the kitchen. I watched him go, feeling a strange mix of relief and fear coursing through me. He didn't shout. He didn't throw something at me. He didn't even slam the door. He just left. And in that silence, I felt a cold sense of dread creep over me. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was only the beginning. I waited for him to come back, to say something, to ask me to explain myself. But he didn't. He didn't come back that night, or the next day. It wasn't like Mark to ignore me for so long. We fought all the time, but we always talked things out eventually. But not this time. This time, he stayed away. The hours stretched on, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe I had said too much, too soon. But deep down, I knew I had been holding that truth in for far too long. The problem wasn't just about the words I had spoken. It was about the feelings behind them. I lay awake that night, the empty space next to me in bed feeling heavier than it had in years. Mark's absence wasn't just physical, it was emotional, too. He had always been the quiet one in our relationship, but now there was something more to his silence. A distance that I couldn't bridge, no matter how hard I tried. I thought about calling him, but I didn't. I didn't know what I would say to him if I did. I didn't know if I even wanted him to come back. Part of me feared that whatever happened next would be the end of us, and another part of me couldn't help but wonder if that was what I needed. The next day passed in a blur. I went through the motions, work, errands, pretending everything was fine. But my mind kept returning to the moment I had spoken those words. Had I destroyed everything in one careless sentence? Or was this just the beginning of something much deeper? I couldn't be sure. But whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't the end of it. Mark's reaction, his silence, had shaken me more than I could admit. I had no idea what he would do next. But I knew it would change everything. The silence between Mark and me stretched on for days. It was as if my words had broken something fundamental in him, something I couldn't fix. At first, I tried to distract myself. I threw myself into work, focusing on tasks I could complete in a frenzy, hoping to avoid confronting the emptiness that had settled in our home. But the truth was, every time I walked into the house, it felt like I was walking into a different world, one where he no longer existed the way he used to. And I wasn't sure if that was my fault, or his. I spent hours staring at the phone, debating whether or not I should call him. The tension in the house was palpable. The silence felt like a thick, suffocating fog. I missed him. I missed the man I used to know, the one who could make me laugh until my sides ached, the one who once looked at me like I was the only person in the room. But that man was gone, replaced by someone who seemed so far away, even when he was right next to me. I finally caved and called my sister, Claire. She had always been my sounding board, the one person I knew I could turn to when I didn't know what to do. I needed her advice, even though I already had a sinking feeling that nothing would be able to fix this. What happened? You never said anything like that to him before, Claire said, her voice concerned but gentle. I could hear the worry in her tone, even from the other side of the phone. I don't know, Claire, I admitted, my voice breaking a little. It just came out. I didn't think about it at the time, but now I don't know what to do. He's not even talking to me. He won't answer my calls. It's like he's disappeared. Have you tried talking to him? I mean, really talking, not just yelling or blaming him, she asked, always the practical one. I don't even know what to say, I replied. I can't take it back, Claire. I said something awful, and now he's just gone. It's like there's a wall between us, and I don't know how to break through. I think you need to give him some space, she suggested. But also, don't let him pull away for too long. If this relationship is going to work, you both have to be willing to face the uncomfortable truths. I sat there, absorbing her words. Claire was right, of course. But it was so much easier said than done. How do you face a truth when you're not even sure you know what it is anymore? The days continued to pass, each one feeling more like a repeat of the last. I spent hours staring at the empty space in our bed, wondering where Mark had gone, wondering if he was even thinking about me at all. The quiet was maddening. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the silence wasn't just about me and him. It was about everything, our marriage, our lives together, everything that had been buried under the surface for years. I couldn't ignore it anymore. There was something deeper here, something I had been avoiding for a long time. Maybe Mark's silence wasn't just a reaction to what I'd said. Maybe it was a reflection of something I had failed to see. He had always been the one to retreat into himself when things got tough, but this time felt different. This time, he wasn't just retreating. He was shutting me out completely. That night, I decided to confront him. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, or even if I was ready for the fallout, but I couldn't keep waiting. The tension was eating me alive. I walked into the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. Mark was sitting on the couch, his eyes fixed on the TV, but I could tell he wasn't really watching. His mind was somewhere else. "Mark," I said softly, taking a deep breath. He didn't respond, didn't even look at me. "Mark, please," I said, my voice firmer this time. "Can we talk? Just talk. I need to understand what's going on." He finally looked up, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, resentment, maybe, or hurt. But it was gone as quickly as it came. He shrugged, as if what I said didn't matter. "What's there to talk about, Emily?" His tone was flat, distant. "You said what you needed to say. It's done." "No, it's not," I replied, shaking my head. "I didn't mean it like that, Mark. You said it." "You don't turn me on anymore," he interrupted, his voice growing colder. "I heard you. And maybe it's true. Maybe we've both been lying to each other for too long." I was taken aback by his words. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't gotten angry. But there was something in the way he spoke that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just about what I had said, it was about something deeper, something I wasn't ready to face. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying maybe it's time to stop pretending," he replied, standing up and turning his back on me. "Maybe we've been pretending for too long, Emily. Maybe it's time to face the truth about what this really is." I didn't know what to say to that. The silence that followed felt even heavier than before. The room felt like it was closing in on me, and I had no idea how to escape it. As Mark left the room without another word, I sat there, stunned and confused. Was this really the end of us? Had I pushed him too far, or had he already made up his mind about us? I didn't know. But something inside me told me this was just the beginning. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be easy. And it might just change everything. I woke up the next morning to an empty house. The bed was cold on my side, and for the first time in a long while, I realized I could feel the absence of Mark more than ever. The house, once filled with laughter and the comfortable sounds of our routines, felt hollow now. The silence was no longer just a pause between us, it had become a presence of its own, one that seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour. I stayed in bed longer than I should have, staring at the ceiling, wondering if there was any way to fix this. The last conversation we had left me with more questions than answers. Mark's words echoed in my mind, "Maybe we've been pretending for too long." What did he mean by that? Was he talking about our marriage, about our life together? Was this really it? The end of everything? I had no answers, only this crushing weight in my chest. I hadn't meant to hurt him, but somehow, I had. My words had cut deeper than I realized. And the fact that he had turned so cold, so distant, made me question everything. Maybe it was true. Maybe we were both pretending. I dragged myself out of bed and tried to focus on the day ahead. Work. Distractions. Anything to keep my mind from spiraling into that dark place where the what-ifs lived. But even at the office, I couldn't escape the thought of him. Mark had always been my home, my safe place. Now, he was a stranger to me, someone I no longer recognized. As I sat in my cubicle, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Claire. "Have you heard from him yet?" she asked. I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. What was there to say? "No," I typed back. "He's still not talking to me." I waited for a reply, but nothing came. I knew she was probably waiting for me to say more, to tell her what I was feeling. But I didn't know how to explain it, not to her, not to anyone. What was there to say? I had pushed him away with my own words, and now he was shutting me out. Was there even a way back from this? The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't focus. My thoughts kept returning to Mark. I replayed our last conversation over and over in my mind, trying to make sense of his coldness. He hadn't seemed angry, not like I expected. He had seemed resigned, almost like he had already given up on us. By the time I got home, the house was still empty. Mark's car was parked in the driveway, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had vanished. I felt that familiar pang in my chest again, the ache of loneliness. I hated this feeling of being disconnected, of not knowing where we stood anymore. I made myself dinner, though I barely had an appetite. The food sat on the plate in front of me, untouched. Every bite felt like a reminder of the distance between us. After dinner, I went to the living room and sat down on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. My mind raced, and yet, I couldn't find the right words to say, the right actions to take. And then, just as I was about to give in to the hopelessness that had been creeping in, I heard the front door creak open. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly stood up, my eyes fixed on the hallway. Mark appeared in the doorway, his face unreadable, his hands shoved into the pockets of his jacket. He didn't look at me right away. He just stood there, as if weighing something inside of him. The silence between us stretched again, and for a moment, I thought he might turn around and leave. But then, he spoke. "I didn't know where to start," he said, his voice low but steady. "I've been thinking about what you said. About us. And I don't think we can just go back to how things were before. I don't think it's possible." I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. "Mark, I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know," he interrupted, holding up a hand. "I know you didn't mean it like that. But the thing is, Emily, we've been drifting for a long time. And maybe I've been blind to it, maybe we both have. But the truth is, I don't know if we can fix this anymore." The words hit me like a slap, and I staggered back, feeling the breath leave my lungs. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to hear him say what I had been afraid of for so long. I had known deep down that things weren't right, but hearing him say it out loud made it all too real. It was as if the floor had been ripped out from under me. "No, Mark," I said, shaking my head, trying to steady myself. "Please don't say that. We can fix this. We have to fix this. I don't want to lose you. I don't want this to be the end." Mark took a deep breath and stepped closer to me, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity one hadn't seen in a long time. For a moment, I thought he might say something that would make everything better, something to take away the pain, to reassure me that we weren't finished. But he didn't. "I don't know if I believe in that anymore," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if we're the same people we were when we first got together." I stared at him, my chest tightening. His words cut deeper than any argument we'd ever had. This wasn't just about a fight. This wasn't just about me saying something I shouldn't have. This was about something more, something we had both ignored for far too long. I love you, Mark, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. I don't want to lose you. Please don't let this be the end. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned his back to me and walked toward the door. My heart shattered as I watched him go. Was this really the end? Had I waited too long to say the right things, to do the right things? Was it too late for us? Before he left, he paused at the door and turned back to look at me. His expression was soft, almost sad. I don't know if we can fix this, Emily, he said quietly. But I think we owe it to ourselves to try. With that, he walked out, leaving me standing there, alone in the silence. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if we had a chance. But one thing was clear, I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. The next few days passed in a blur. I went through the motions, trying to focus on work, trying to distract myself from the growing emptiness I felt in the pit of my stomach. But no matter what I did, my mind kept drifting back to Mark. He was there, in every corner of the house, in every quiet moment. It was as if he had never left, even though he had. I had spent hours staring at the text messages we had exchanged, reading his words over and over again, trying to make sense of everything. He had said that he didn't know if we could fix it, that maybe we weren't the same people anymore. And I couldn't deny that there was some truth in that. We had changed, both of us. But I wasn't ready to throw everything away just yet. I couldn't be. I woke up that morning to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was early, too early for me to be awake, but I grabbed it anyway, half expecting it to be a work-related message. But when I looked at the screen, my heart skipped a beat. It was Mark. "Can we talk?" the message read. I sat up in bed, my hands trembling slightly as I typed a response. Of course. When? He didn't take long to reply. I'll be home in an hour. An hour. I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation knotting in my stomach. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew we needed to talk. We had to. There were too many unanswered questions, too many things left unsaid between us. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I spent the next hour pacing around the house, trying to calm my nerves. I tried to think of what I would say to him, but nothing seemed right. What could I say that would make him understand? Could I fix the damage I had caused, or was it too late? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't keep waiting for some perfect moment to speak the right words. There was no perfect moment, no magic solution. It was just us, standing here, trying to make sense of the mess we had created. When Mark finally walked through the door, I felt my heart race. He looked the same as always, but there was something different about him. Maybe it was the way he held himself, as if he was carrying the weight of a decision he wasn't ready to make. Or maybe it was just that look in his eyes, that same uncertainty I had seen the last time we spoke. Hey, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Hey, I replied, my voice shaky. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, neither of us knowing what to say. The silence between us was heavy, more oppressive than it had ever been. I could feel my heart in my throat, pounding with each passing second. It was as if everything in the world had stopped, and it was just the two of us, caught in this moment of waiting, of uncertainty. Finally, Mark broke the silence. I've been thinking about what you said, he started, his gaze never leaving mine. About how I don't turn you on anymore. I flinched at his words. They stung, even though I knew they were true. I had said it, and it was out there, hanging between us like a shadow. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, I said quickly, my voice rising with emotion. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Mark. I just didn't know how to explain it. We've been distant for so long, and I didn't know how to fix it. I know, he said softly, his expression pained. I know you didn't mean it like that. But the thing is, it's not just about the sex, is it? It's everything. It's how we've been drifting apart for so long, how we've both been pretending that things are fine when they're not. His words hit me harder than I expected. He was right. It wasn't just about the physical distance between us, it was everything. It was the emotional distance, the unspoken frustration, the growing sense that we were no longer the people we had been when we first met. I know, I whispered, my voice breaking. I didn't want to admit it, but I think I've been pretending too. Mark stepped closer to me, and for the first time in days, I felt the warmth of his presence. He reached out, his hand brushing against mine, and I felt a spark, something that I hadn't felt in so long. It wasn't the same as before, not that burning passion we had once shared, but it was something. Something that made me believe there was still hope for us. We've both made mistakes, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But I don't want to give up on us. I don't want to just walk away and pretend like nothing matters. I felt tears sting my eyes as I looked at him, searching his face for some sign of hope, some way forward. Do you think we can fix this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, and for a moment, I thought he was going to say no. But then he nodded slowly, his hand finding mine again. I don't know if we can fix everything, he said, but I think we owe it to ourselves to try. I think we owe it to the love we had. My chest tightened at his words. We couldn't just ignore the cracks that had formed between us, but maybe, just maybe, we could start to fill them in. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, not by pretending everything was perfect, but by facing the truth together. I want to try too, I said softly, squeezing his hand. I don't want to lose you, Mark. Not like this. He pulled me into his arms then, holding me tight as if he was afraid I might slip away. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't about fixing everything all at once. It was about taking small steps, about trying to rebuild what we had lost, one piece at a time. I'm scared, I confessed, my voice muffled against his chest. I'm scared that it's too late, that we've already lost too much. I'm scared too, he admitted, his voice soft. But I'm willing to fight for us, if you are. I nodded, my heart swelling with a mixture of hope and fear. It wasn't going to be easy. We had a long road ahead of us, and there were no guarantees. But for the first time in a long while, I believed that we had a chance. We might not be able to turn back the clock, but we could start fresh. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new. And whatever the future held, we would face it together.